All right, let's go on to a little bit different question here, and we've got C1 times V1 equals C2 times V2. Now this one's a little bit different because what we're doing is we are adding epinephrine to our lidocaine. So the lidocaine, we know that we've got 60 milliliters of 1% lidocaine on the back table. So that's going to remain 1% lidocaine. We're not going to substantially change it by adding a small amount of epinephrine to it, other than we have combined two different medications. But what we want to know is that we want to end up with 1% lidocaine that has 1 to 100,000 epinephrine concentration added in it. So we're looking at two different types here. We're looking at a percent concentration and then a ratio concentration. So the 1% lidocaine is going to stay what it is. We're just wanting it to be 1% lidocaine with epi in a proper concentration. Now this is something we use routinely, is 1% with 1 to 100,000 epi. Most of the time it comes that way. It comes packaged that way, and it's very simple, and you do not have to worry about this. But occasionally we have shortages of local anesthetics, and that may mean that we get some 1% lidocaine that is plain and need to add the epi to it. So that's what this case would be. So we know that we have 60 milliliters, which will be our V2. And what we want that to be is 1 to 100,000. Epi. And so then our concentration one is 1 to 1,000 epi. And that's what we're going to get in those little glass vials, very small amounts that we'll be using here. Because remember, epi is super concentrated. And so we want to know how much we need to add, how much 1 to 1,000 epi we need to add to that 60 milliliters to make it 1 to 100,000. So here we're totally not even looking at the 1%. It is not relevant at this point. Okay? So we've got the 1 to 1,000 times V1 equals 60 over 100,000. All right, so we can divide both sides by 1 over 1,000. And so if we divide this by 1 over 1,000, that will equal then 60 over 100,000 times 1,000 over 1. So we've got to flip that 1 over 1,000 that we're dividing by and multiply it in order to make that work with fractions. And so our V1 then equals this 60 milliliters over 100,000 times 1,000 over 1, which is going to then equal 60,000 divided by 100,000. So we can get rid of some of these zeros here. And so V1 equals 6/10 of a milliliter, or 0.6 mLs. So there we take a small tuberculin 1 milliliter syringe and draw up 0.6 or 6/10 of a milliliter of that 1 to 1,000 epi. And then when that is placed in that 60 milliliters of 1% lidocaine, then we will end up having 60 mLs of that 1% lidocaine with epi that is 1 to 100,000 concentration. Oops, excuse me there. Running out of space, 1 to 100,000. Now you see why we're not really changing the 1% at all. We're not diluting the 1% because we're only putting 0.6 of a milliliter in that 60 milliliters of 1%. So that's not making a substantive change there. But the epi being so strong is what we're trying to dilute correctly. And very important that we get this correct because very little difference can make a huge difference when it comes to epinephrine.